What I'm looking for in a bank is one that's looking out for me, like NBT. I want a relationship and a team that supports me in my dreams. And when life gets challenging, I need a bank that's focused on what matters. Not to mention one that's been top-rated by Forbes in trust, customer service, financial advice, and more. That's why when it comes to meeting my banking needs, it's always NBT. Learn more at nbtbank.com. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in. This is Tom Hickey from 2020 Media, and you are listening to NBT Bank's On the Scene podcast, reaching over 250,000, that's 250,000 readers of the Jewish Ledger, weha.com, and West Hartford Magazine, live 24/7, 365, wherever you find your podcast, and you're listening to us now. So thanks for joining us. Bob Carr, who is my co-host, had a conflict this morning and could not be with us. So he normally does a fantastic job introducing some guy named Tom Hickey. But I'm not going to bore you with the details. I'm going to send you to 20media20.com, which is our website, 20media, MEDIA, 20.com. And you can learn all about everything that we do every single day. I did want to acknowledge and thank, because he is not on our website, Eric Lapin, who from the Modern Observer, who puts together our entire website and gets it out there and helps us make and sound professional. So thank you, Eric, for your continued support and help. We appreciate it. And in the meantime, what Bob would normally do is he would introduce our guest today, and we have two. Hilary doesn't usually join us, even though if I'm opening my mouth, that's sort of like Hilary opening her mouth, except she'll say I say too much, which is the same thing as my real wife, my spouse says, as opposed to the work wife. But Hilary's with us this morning. Hi, Hilary.
Good morning.
And a rare appearance from the editor extraordinaire, Judy Jacobson. And Judy, we're thrilled to have you. Hi, Judy.
Hi there, Tom. Hi, Hilary.
And it's so funny. We were just saying before we went on air, and I'm going to start with that. Time flies. We can't believe it's already, November. And the whole bit. It's craziness. And the reason why we're talking today is because time flies. The Jewish Ledger is celebrating 95 years. And it's almost crazy. It's just unheard of. So what do you say, Judy, when people say to you, how could the Jewish Ledger be 95 years old?
I say, what's the Jewish Ledger? I've been gone so long.
Yeah.
But it has lasted through a lot of ups and downs, not in the world. The world has gone through a lot in the time that the Ledger, and that's maybe, I don't want to jump ahead, but that's one of the important roles the Ledger played, that it was there for the Jewish community to keep them informed, and especially recently, in recent days,
right.
And before then, I mean, the Israel and the Jewish community had been through a lot. And the Ledger, it's important for papers like the Ledger to be there to make sure people know what's going on. So.
And Judy, one of the things that you do such a great job of always reminding us of is the uniqueness, of the Ledger. And
very unique.
Yeah.
Very unique. First of all, it really is a family. You don't work at the Ledger because you needed a job and you take that, because you're not making too much money there. It's a labor of love. Right. You have to care about the Jewish community, at least, or Jewish life.
Hey, we wouldn't have you on this podcast right now, Judy, if it wasn't all love, right?
When I came to Hartford, to West Hartford, I guess, in 1988, and I opened up in those days you look for a job by opening up the want ads in the newspaper, and I opened up the newspaper and looked under public relations, because I was in communications. I was an editor in New York, and so I looked under public relations, and there was one job, and it was at the JCC in West Hartford, and I applied for it and I got it, and that was the end of the story. And I've been in the Jewish community ever since. But
what year was that, Judy?
What was that?
What year was that?
That was 1988.
Okay.
A long time ago. And I stayed there for about 11 years, but I continued to work within the Jewish community, and I had never worked within the Jewish. Well, I did a little bit in New York. When I was living in New York, I was in the secular world, which was fine, but it was home. I was home when I got to the Jewish community in West Hartford, or working within the Jewish community in West Hartford. It's a tough community. It's not always, but and that's the Ledger. The Ledger was a family. We were always a family, no matter, publishers and it came and went, but we were always a family, and you're still the family there. So there
And
you
Judy, when
go.
you switched in 1988 from the JCC Jewish Community Center, for those of you who didn't make that connection,
Oh yeah.
she said that's right.
Yeah.
Who was the publisher at that time?
So when I came, Bert Gaster.
Okay.
Bert Gaster was everything. He was, chief cook and bottle washer. He was the editor, the publisher, the manager. He was everything at the Ledger. And Shirley Bunis, who needs to be mentioned, she should be mentioned. She was the business manager.
Okay.
And she took, excuse me, she.
Yeah. Hilary, some things don't change, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Our huge staff, I always say to
Yeah.
Hilary, who makes all this happen? It's me, myself, and I. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Many hats.
So Shirley was the business manager, and her daughter worked there too, Harriet. Remember Harriet Bunis, Hilary? You would probably
Vaguely.
She was very quiet, and she sort of
Yeah.
was. She was like Shirley's right-hand person, and she worked there, and then she left. But that's who was there. I mean, to me, the Ledger was always Bert Gaster. He was, and I'll talk about it, but he was the heart and soul of the Ledger, and he always will be. And there were a few after. I mean, there was well, Jonathan Tobin was for a while, but he wasn't publisher. He was really editor. But of course, then Ricky came, and I have great admiration for Ricky, and I liked him very much. And he had his own style and his own agenda, but still, Bert Gaster's the guy who put it all together. When Bert Gaster came, and Bert Gaster came in around 1960. It might have been a year or two before that, and Sam Neusner was still in charge. In fact, I think Rabbi Feldman was still alive then. Although I didn't know either Rabbi Feldman or Sam Neusner, who founded the Ledger.
Okay.
But when Bert Gaster came, I now forgot what I was going to tell you about Bert Gaster. But
That's all right. Just
we'll get back to
we'll
it.
get back to him. That's all right. That's
Yeah, but he was really it.
The heart and
He did-
soul.
Yeah, he did it all, and he was really a community. He personifies everything the Ledger was, because he was not only the editor and the publisher and everything else. He was enmeshed and entrenched in Jewish life in Hartford. I don't even know if he was a religious guy. Probably not. But he went to every event, and he was informed about everything. And he, of course, when you went into him, he was editor, and I was the PR person at the JCC, as I said. So in those days, I would go up to the office when I had a press release. That's how you sent it over. Those were the days. So when I would go up to the Ledger with a press release, and let's say it was about a fair we were having that weekend, and he would say to me, he would read it, he'd go, oh, good. You're not advertising? Don't you think you should take out an ad for this?
Again, some things never change.
I was
Right?
going to say, some things won't change. Yeah.
And if you ask anyone who was in my position anywhere, any of the other agencies at that time, they'll tell you the same thing. You went up to him, and he was always looking for an ad, but he was okay. I mean, that's what kept it alive.
Yeah.
The Ledger would have been closed many times. The Ledger started just 6 months before the Depression hit.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
It was, I think, it was the spring of 29. I think it was April.
Mhm.
And in
Yeah.
October, the bottom fell out of the market, and that was it. So I'm not sure if the Ledger was about to open 6 months later, we might not have been here.
Right, yeah.
Who knows what would happen? But they kept it alive. They did okay, and that was But I shouldn't talk about him. I mean, Neusner and Feldman were really the guys who did it, especially Neusner.
But it is so important to not only understand but appreciate how it started, and where
Yeah.
it came from. Because
Yeah.
everybody just thinks, oh, somebody had tons of money and just poured it into this.
Not at all.
It's
Not
like,
at all. I
yeah,
mean, Neusner, when World War II hit, as I said, that paper's been through it all.
Mm,
It started, right after World War I, and it's been through World War II and the Holocaust. They reported extensively on the Holocaust and everything else that happened, the establishment of the State of Israel and the subsequent wars that Israel had, including the one they just had. I mean, it's been through everything.
mm,
But in World War II, um, it was so money was so tight
mm,
that I think it was World War II that Sam Neusner went out and got a job. He had been previously, before entering the world of journalism, he had been a machinist for, I think, a shoe company or something like that. And when World War II hit and they needed money, they had no money. The paper would have gone under, but he went out and got a job as a machinist just to keep it alive, keep it going.
yeah,
So Tom, go get a job as a machinist.
that's right. Go get a job somewhere else.
But I'm just saying, it really was important to them to keep it going.
Where will you find West Hartford's best and most comprehensive business news? At weha.com. Subscribe to the weha.com newsletter Business Buzz for free every Monday at weha.com. Log on to we-ha.com. We have it all in West Hartford.
It does seem that at every stage of the ledger, the publisher, there was always someone who, cared enough about it to
You have to care.
on. It's not
Yeah.
been an easy project for anyone.
Yeah.
And for a paper to remain independent 95 years later.
Exactly.
really-
exactly.
it's
And
really
look
something
at
to be
Ricky
celebrated.
Greenfield,
Yeah.
Ben
Ricky,
Richard
yeah.
Greenfield, who, followed up, was the
Yeah.
next
He could have
publisher.
just retired and had a
Easily.
lovely, quiet,
Easily.
easy life. Yeah.
Not only didn't he retire, but he bought the paper as part of a consortium they bought it from Bert and from Shirley as a consortium of businessmen.
Mm.
I guess it was sort of an investment, although I don't know what kind of investment it was because I mean, it's in terms of money, it's never been that profitable, but it did a lot for the community. And 2 years after he bought it, I think he bought out the others.
Mhm.
And he became the publisher. And he was very committed. He wasn't even from the Hartford area. He wasn't even from Connecticut. He was from
Very valid. Yeah.
Dennis
Massachusetts.
Glass. Yeah.
Yeah. And yet,
But he built so many ties to the community and
He did.
really became
He
one
did.
of us per
yeah,
se.
he did. And
Yeah.
to the community, but he
Yeah.
he had his own agenda. A lot of his agenda was political, but he was
He did. He loved the political stuff, and I always, he died years ago now, but I always wonder what he would make of the political climate today.
he might be happy.
Who's to say?
We won't even speculate about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But he was also a good guy. But and then it went on to Henry. But Neusner and Feldman were the guys who really started it all. And by the way, the beginning of the ledger is not in Connecticut; it's in Massachusetts.
Oh,
because it
wow,
was
I didn't even know that.
yeah. Neusner came here as a young boy.
Huh.
He was about 10 years old. He came from, I think, Ukraine, and with his family. And he quit school, I think, after 4 years. He was a young boy. He never finished school, but he was a really bright guy.
Hmm.
And he joined the army because it was, I guess at that time, it was World War II. And he joined the army. He went into the Army Air Corps. And when he got out, he took a job. He was stationed in Texas. And when he got out, he stayed in Texas. And this is a very Jewish story because I don't know if it's a real story or if it's just the legend. But supposedly his mother got on a train and went to Texas and schlepped him home. She refused to allow him to stay there. So he came back and he got a job in Boston for the Boston Jewish Advocate, which was a very successful paper at the time. And he really became, he loved journalism. He became really admiring of journalism, and he decided to stay with that. And I guess
was she in Boston? Is that how Boston came to be, or was she in Connecticut? The mother.
She meaning who? His mother?
His mother.
They lived in the Massachusetts. I'm not
Massachusetts. Okay.
exactly sure what
All right.
town,
Okay.
but they lived in Massachusetts. And the owners of the Advocate,
Hmm.
Bryn, there were two brothers. I can't remember their first names, but their last name was Bryn. I don't know if the Advocate's still around. It was for many years, but it was a very good newspaper.
Hmm.
And they really liked him. They really admired him a lot, and they wanted to open a paper in Western Mass,
Hmm.
and they appointed him to do it, to go out there and to open the paper. And he did, and he went, and it was very successful. He took his wife Lee,
Yeah.
I don't know how many kids he had at the time. He eventually had 3 kids, and they stayed there. And then eventually from there, he moved to the suburbs of Springfield,
Oh, well,
which could have been Long
Hilary,
Meadow.
good thing we call it the Southern New England Jewish Ledger, right?
There
Look
you go. That's right. That's right.
at
That's what it. And it was at the time. It was just I mean, it was only the Western Mass
Yeah.
paper, but and he was doing that, and they started to cover a little bit of Connecticut, but not much. But he met Rabbi, uh, what did I just say? His name was Abraham Rubenfeld. Oh,
Okay.
I can't remember.
That's all right.
Whatever it was. I should.
The
That's the
rabbi. We'll just go with the rabbi. Yeah.
Yeah, the
He's
rabbi.
not
There
very
you go.
nice because he was one of the owners. And they became friends, and they decided to open up a Connecticut paper as well. And first it was Connecticut and Massachusetts. And but the rabbi was only in charge of really doing ads, getting ads, and writing editorials.
Huh,
He,
interesting.
he used to write the editorials. And everything other than that was Newsner.
Wow. And all
Newsner
of
was
this, Judy, was done independently. Like, in other words, he didn't go to a federation or he didn't.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
No, they started out, that was just them.
Yeah.
And they started out, and the paper became successful. And so it was now Connecticut and Massachusetts, Western Mass and Connecticut. But Connecticut was really only Hartford and but Hartford and maybe some of the towns around it. I don't know how many Jews were living in the towns around it at the time, but it was that area. It didn't go over, and New Haven. It was also New Haven. And they covered like Stamford and things, but not very heavily.
Huh.
And that's how the paper became. Eventually, I mean, the paper's been through many incarnations.
Hmm.
Then it became two separate papers, Connecticut, and then we opened Western Mass Jewish Ledger came much after that. Then we added Central Massachusetts, and then there was town papers, but that didn't last too long. And then finally there was one Connecticut paper, and then of course it became the Southern Connecticut Jewish Ledger. So it's been through a lot of, it's had many lives like a cat,
Yeah.
but it's survived it all. So
Yeah.
and with some pretty good leadership, some that I liked less and some that I liked more. But I think the best was Bert and Ricky.
Isn't that funny? That's
You know,
interesting.
Ricky had his own opinions, and Ricky was not afraid to get people angry. He didn't care.
Hmm.
He was going to push the edge of the envelope, and I think that's kind of important.
Hmm.
But there was he always maintained a respectful dialogue. He always welcomed
did.
everyone into the office, loved
Absolutely.
to have, lunch and chats, and loved to
Absolutely.
meet with people, and would always be connecting people. That was one
Yes.
thing that he was truly good at, was, bringing people into our little family, the community, and connecting people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was great. In fact, even when I was there, I started to get sometime in the summer an intern, like a kid who was in college who was interested maybe in going into journalism. I would let him write some stories. Some were better than others a lot of the time. And they would come in, and some would show up every day, and some would show up once every few weeks. But when they came in, he would always sit down with them and talk to them about what they wanted to do. And he would, share his thoughts on journalism and on
Hmm.
the Jewish community. And, so he cared. He really did care.
Interesting.
And so did Bert. He cared a lot. Who else came? So if after Newsner came Bert, Bert was actually working for Neusner. He was managing editor of the paper when Neusner was there. And when Neusner got sick in, I think, around 1960, and then he passed away 67 or 70, something like that. He passed away young. And his wife took over the publishing job, Lee. And I don't know, I didn't know her. I didn't know Neusner himself. So she took that over, but she didn't last. She lasted a few years. And then she sold the paper to Bert and Shirley.
Okay.
And that's when they took over as.
So did you get involved because you came from JCC? Was that the
Well, I was at the JCC, and from the JCC, I was offered a job at the Hebrew Academy, what was then the Hebrew Academy.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I only lasted there 4 years. And then I knew everybody at the Ledger very well because, again, I had been PR person for so long, and I was always up there.
Yeah.
In fact, I was up there a few times when I heard things I shouldn't have heard. I know where a lot of the bodies are buried, but and I'll let them lie peacefully. But then I started freelancing for the Ledger. They asked me if I would do, at the time, do you remember, Hilary, that we did some slick little magazines? They were advertising vehicles, really.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
There was a lifestyle magazine.
Yeah, exactly.
Celebration.
I think there was something in Connecticut. I can't remember, but I would write for them, and then they asked me if I would do some stories for them, work part-time. I said okay, and then eventually they asked me to write, so I became a writer. And then Lisa Lankowitz, who should be mentioned also because she spent several years as editor of the paper, and she was a good editor. And she left, and I took over as editor, and that's really how that happened. So the reason I knew Bert was not because I was working at the Ledger.
Okay.
Because I was there. And of course, Bert always made you feel like when you walked in the office, he had to talk to you. You were the only one he was going to talk to.
Oh, wow.
But the truth is, anybody who walked in that office got his ear. Or you got his mouth.
Yeah.
But, he was just a affable, friendly guy who.
And it's so funny. I was out with a mentor, a former mentor, the other day, and we were chatting about how difficult it is today because you don't have offices. Like you don't
Right,
walk
it's
into,
true.
So here we are on a podcast.
Right.
Hilary, what would be great is if we could direct people to the website, because what I would love to do is have people, reach out to us and just say, hey, I'd love to hear. I mean, I'm looking at the clock right now, and we're already out of time. It's just like, just like how could that be? So we'll have a part 2. That's okay. Same thing happened with the Ron Foley Foundation, I think it was. So we sometimes special anniversaries or big occasions are worth continuing to talk.
Yeah, you can get people like
Judy, you're a wealth of
Tom Hickey.
knowledge. I mean, that's when you sit back and think about it, your input and your comments are as always are very welcomed, at least by me. Whatever.
Yeah.
So,
It's interesting to know where it came from, but the
Yeah.
Ledger was a family affair.
Yeah.
Bert had everybody in his family working there.
Yeah,
His
funny.
wife did remember Adele?
Mhm.
She did theater reviews, and his son was the sports writer. I don't know if his daughter did anything, but they were all involved. Neusner was the same way. He had 3 kids. The youngest was a girl, so we didn't count her because girls weren't. Nobody counted girls in those days.
Yeah.
But he had 2 sons, and he involved them both in the paper. They both were for the paper.
Funny.
So
And that's another example of how things have changed, right? Because my son told me he doesn't want to have anything to do with it.
I didn't even want to hear about it.
He didn't tell me. He told my wife. He told his mother. So then she told me. So Hilary, end us here with the Jewish Ledger website so people can reach out and hopefully we'll hear from them.
Yeah, you can all head to jewishledger.com. If you have personal stories, I get submissions from the community. You can reach out to me directly, Hilary with 2 L's, Hilary at 20media20.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to publish your your thoughts, your work on the pages of the ledger. Yeah, feel free to reach out.
And
Oh,
Judy, we can't thank you enough, and we will make sure that we have a part 2.
it was a, it was
the
a good
special
thing.
Jewish
Yeah,
ledger.
you should try to get Jonathan Tobin to come in and
Okay.
talk
A
to
big-
you.
The,
big
the,
name.
the nicest thing about the podcast too is people can be anywhere. I mean,
Anywhere,
yeah,
right?
you
A
know,
few
so-
minutes out of your time, and
right, exactly.
so that's
All
good.
right.
Good.
Well, thanks again, and I have to close out by acknowledging again and thanking our sponsor, NBT Bank, because without NBT Bank, there would be no On the Scene podcast. So pop in and pay a visit to them as they open up more branches and expand throughout the greater West Hartford, area, now that they are in Connecticut with the rest of us. So we will see you soon. Be well, be safe, and Judy, thanks again. We can't express our gratitude, enough.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Judy.
We will be in touch. All right.
Good.
Take
Thanks.
care.
What I'm looking for in a bank is one that's looking out for me, like NBT. I want a relationship and a team that supports me in my dreams. And when life gets challenging, I need a bank that's focused on what matters. Not to mention one that's been top rated by Forbes in trust, customer service, financial advice, and more. That's why when it comes to meeting my banking needs, it's always NBT. Learn more at nbtbank.com. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.